Hi there, my name is Brandon Dempsey. I own a marketing company here in St. Louis called Go Brand Go. And today we're going to talk about a blueprint for time blocking and having more time to do what you want, actually get out of life what you want. Before we get into kind of how to do it, let me just tell you a little bit about my adventure and my journey on this whole time blocking concept last year. I started this back in 2013. And it radically changed and improved my productivity by a factor of at least 2 to 3 times in my business. It also allowed me to complete a pretty big personal goal, which was to complete an Ironman competition last year. Now, if you would have asked me 2, 3 years ago, hey, interested in doing an Ironman, I would have told you there's no way I can work out 30 hours a week. There's no way I can fit 30 hours a week into my time schedule now of 100-hour work weeks. It just wouldn't happen. But by using time blocking, what I found is that I did have time. I just had to schedule it right. And also what happened is it made me healthier, it made me happier, and it made me busier than I've ever been before. And that led to more leads, more referrals for me in my business. It allowed for people respecting my time a whole lot more. It made for happier clients, happier coworkers, and most importantly, a happier wife and a happier marriage. And it ultimately allowed me more time to do what I really wanted, which gave me energy every day, as opposed to just fighting fires and all the crap that hit me every day. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what time blocking is. So time blocking is, I believe, it's a time management technique that uses a synced calendar across multiple devices to manage your time and get the most out of what you're trying to get done. It's a scheduling methodology that allows you to schedule and move stuff around your calendar and really helps with overall task list management. Now, I use a zero inbox, and so it's important that I use that for my inbox, and that's kind of how I process my task list, but we'll talk about that more in a second here. So first, when we look at the setup, we got to look at a technology setup. And that means getting your synced calendar across all your devices. So you first got to use a service. I use Google Apps in our business. It's $5 a month, or $5 a user a month, pretty simple. There's also Gmail, which is free. There's Microsoft Exchange. There's Apple iCloud. There's Office 365. There's a whole lot of solutions out there. The point is to get something that's hosted someplace else, and then can sync up to all your different devices. Next, you got to make sure the calendar app is up and running on all your devices. I use an iPhone, I use an iPad, and I use a web browser on my computer as my calendar on my computer. And lastly, you got to bookmark that calendar for easy access. So on my home screen of my iPhone, one of the main buttons is calendar. On my iPad, the main button is calendar. On my computer, every time I open up my computer, I turn on my computer, I have it set to open up a web browser, and the home screen is that calendar that pops up so that I can manage it. So once you got the technology set up, you got to change your mindset a little bit, right? So you got to change that mindset to be one that says, now my calendar now dictates my schedule, and I will honor it. It's important. I will honor it. I will honor my calendar. You got to think of everything that comes to you as a to-do that's out in time in the future. So when someone says, hey, I'd like to get together with you, great. Let's get something booked for 2 to 3 weeks in advance from now, and let's just book it and get it scheduled out ahead of time. The only time I can meet next week is if it's an absolute emergency. By saying 2 to 3 weeks, we can meet in 2 to 3 weeks, you'd be amazed by how many people go, oh, okay. And then those things that seem like emergencies really peter out and get booked 2 to 3 weeks later. And suddenly it's not an emergency 2 to 3 weeks from now. And then lastly, that you got to change your mindset that if someone asks or suggests we meet, we book it right then and there. So if I want to meet with you, and you say, hey, let's get together, what I do is I say, hey, great, let's get it booked right now. I pull up my calendar, let's get it scheduled 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Now, my calendar now has gotten so booked that I'm booking 4 to 6 weeks in advance, right? But point is, you want to book it? Great, let's book it. Let's schedule it now. If someone comes up and says, hey, let's get together, and I don't really care if we get together or not, then what I do is I say, yeah, I'd love to get together with you. Drop me an email with some dates and times, and we'll go 2 to 3 weeks out, and we'll go from there. That way I put the onus on them. If they don't really care to meet and they're just saying it, they're not going to email me, and then I don't have to worry about it. We're not wasting either of our times. All right, so that's the mindset. Next, we got to look at how to get all these recurring meetings, stuff that happens regularly, booked and on the calendar, which means you got to schedule the personal stuff first on the calendar, right? If you're like me, your family comes first, right? You got to schedule that stuff first. So my health, my family, that stuff comes first. So I have scheduled now on my calendar every Tuesdays and Thursday morning, I swim. Now what I also did is I scheduled swimming Tuesday, Thursday morning, and then I scheduled a half-hour breakfast with my wife Tuesday and Thursday morning. That didn't happen 3 years ago. We never ate breakfast together. Now we eat breakfast together consistently 2 to 3 times a week. I schedule all my workouts on my calendar. That was the only way I could get all my training in last year. I scheduled date nights on my calendar. So when I want to go out to dinner with my wife, when we want to get together or go visit some friends, everything gets scheduled on there. All right? So the most important thing is get all that recurring stuff scheduled so that it just happens on the calendar every Tuesday, every Thursday, every week, once a month, something like that. It's just scheduled to hit on the calendar every single month at the same time. Because what you'll find is that life starts to revolve around those scheduled openings. Next, get the recurring business meetings scheduled on your calendar. So that's like your weekly, monthly, quarterly team meetings with your coworkers and your staff. Also your client check-ins, all right, your overall just company meetings. Get that stuff on a somewhat of a recurring scheduled basis, because then everything else magically moves itself around those calendar blocks of time and gets booked. The last thing, this is most important, you got to schedule at least 4 2-hour blocks of time throughout the week. All right, so 4 2-hour blocks of time throughout the week. I do 1 4-hour block on Mondays and then 2 2-hour blocks throughout the week. And this is time to just get stuff done. During that time, I built this presentation. During that time, I work on other projects that I'm trying to get done by the end of the month, the end of the week. I can't tell you how many times in past years that I had a project I wanted to work on that I wanted it done by the end of the month, the end of the quarter, and it never got done. Well, it didn't get done because I didn't schedule time to do it. Not because it wasn't a priority, but because I didn't schedule time to do it. By scheduling time to work on that stuff, what you'll find is it actually gets done. Next, you got to change your responses. And that means all impromptu meetings, like I said earlier, get booked out in advance. No exception. You want to get together? Great. Let's get it booked out in advance. Then you got to require all the organizations. If you're like me, you belong to a lot of organizations, a lot of different groups. I make all of them go to recurring calendar invites as well, because it's ridiculous. We're going to book the next meeting every time we meet? No. There's no way you can align a bunch of different calendars together on a month-by-month basis. Let's set it and forget it. If people can't make it, that's fine. What you'll find is that over time, people's calendars magically adjust to that opening of that recurring meeting. All right. Next, send calendar invites for everything. Absolutely no exception. I don't care if I'm getting together for dinner with my wife. I don't care if I'm getting together for breakfast or lunch with my dad or with a client. It doesn't matter. Every single person gets a calendar invite. This is the only way to confirm that they know the place, date, and time that you're meeting. And when something comes up that you want to do, you got to schedule it way out in advance and either send them the calendar invite, all right, or if it's just something you want to do, like a lot of times I'm like, hey, I'd really like to go drive go-karts. I'd really like to go rock climbing. Even if it's 6 months out, I book it on my calendar. And what's nice is that life continues on, life goes on, and all of a sudden it's like this treat that I get to go out and go rock climbing. I get to go out and go do something fun because my schedule has worked around that reservation slot on my calendar, and now I have the time to go do it, which I would never have time to go do it if it was just trying to, do it ad hoc. So by scheduling it, it makes sure it gets done. Now, when it comes to the scheduling, getting all these reservations on your calendar, everything needs to be booked out really for me in 30 and 60-minute time blocks in the future. So if a to-do comes to me that I've got to get something done or I've got to work on something and it comes to me in an email or something like that, if I can't get it done in 10 minutes or less, then I schedule it on my calendar for 30 or 60 minutes, however long I think it's going to take. And then when something urgent comes up, so let's say I've got a full booked calendar and something urgent comes up that day, then I move the stuff on the calendar. I don't delete it, and that's important. You don't delete it, you just move it to some other spot during the week or the coming weeks before the deadline, and that way you can assure it's getting done, all right? Now, I found it's easy to put the notes section. I use that heavily, and to put my name and the person's name I'm meeting with along with their phone numbers and where they work in that notes section, or even what we're going to be talking about in the notes section. So that way I can pull up my calendar, I can look at it before I go into the meeting, and I know what that meeting's about. Now, when booking meetings with people, I found it's very effective to book 30, 60, and 90-minute time blocks with people. So one of the three, 30, 60, or 90-minute time blocks with people. If they're a long-winded person, I book a 90-minute time slot. If it's going to be a quick networking meeting, it's a 30-minute time slot. If it's a standard client meeting, it's a 60-minute time slot. But here's the trick. You only run the meeting for 25 minutes, 50 minutes, or 75 minutes. So if it's a 30-minute meeting, we run it for 25 minutes. If it's an hour meeting, we run it for 50 minutes. If it's a 90-minute meeting, I run it for 75 minutes. And that way it gives you time to wrap up and get out of there and walk out of the building and still get to your next meeting on time. And it's very important to do that. Then each week I sit down for 30 minutes and send out all of my confirmation emails. Now, because I've got calendar invites out to everybody, I spend 30 minutes each week on a Monday going, hey, are we still confirmed for this meeting here? Are we still confirmed? Are we still confirmed? Now I use Google Apps, so I pull up my calendar on Google Apps and I click the email participants link, and then it pops up and says, what do you want to say to the participants? I type out what I want to say to the participants and click send. And what this does is it sends my note along with all the details of our meeting. And so they've got it all when they want to confirm and say, yep, we're still on for that meeting. And then you got to tell people that you're always booked out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And what happens is that people start to respect that calendar a lot more. And then what I do is every morning I look at my calendar and see what changes I need to move or changes I need to make. I move the calendar around, move the stuff around as I need to, and go on with my day. And lastly, you got to look at drive time. Drive time for me is important. I spend a lot of time in my car. So I block out 30 minutes for drive time before and after my meetings. So if I've got a 1 o'clock appointment, I'll have a 1 o'clock appointment to 2, and then I'll have drive time from 2 to 2:30, and my next meeting will start and go from 2:30 to 3:30. I book a half hour. I'm in St. Louis. It works for us. We're always 20 minutes away from everywhere, so I book a half hour because that covers traffic, that covers parking, that covers I can't find the building, right? Yeah, so I just book out a half hour. I found that that's effective. So if you use this system, what you're going to start to see is that when people want to meet with you, they start asking you a lot sooner and then making sure they're getting on your calendar. They start respecting your time a whole lot more. And what you find is your life starts to revolve more around the events you want to get done instead of life revolving around the emergencies and the fires that are popping up. And that to me has been huge. The more life can revolve around what I want to get done, the more stuff I actually get done. You're going to find people notify you a lot sooner that they need to cancel. They don't call you up the day of. They call you up a week ahead of time letting you know they can't make it. And you're going to find your productivity goes way up because you've scheduled time to work on these tasks. You've scheduled time to work on these big deliverables that you're trying to move forward. And what you find is that everyone around you starts to honor that calendar. So the results for me have been just monumental. I mean, seriously, my productivity has gone up 2 or 3 times as much. Right? I completed an Ironman last year. Under 13 hours was my goal. 12 hours, 42 minutes, super proud of it. And 30 hours of working out a week is what it came down to at the very end. And there's no way I could have managed that kind of a part-time job of working out with a full-time running a business. I'm happier, I'm healthier, I'm busier than ever. I have more leads and more referrals coming in than I've ever had before. My clients are happier, my coworkers are happier, my wife and my marriage is so much better because we're actually spending a lot more time together because it's scheduled out. Our breakfasts are scheduled, our dinners are scheduled. It's all booked and scheduled out. And ultimately, I have more time to do and get out of life what I want. And that gives me more energy for life and gives me more energy to go out and do and have fun and enjoy my life and live my life the way I want to live it as opposed to just responding to life. So book the time in your calendar. Use time blocking. Schedule, and plan stuff out ahead. And what you're going to find is your life is going to be so much happier and so much more fulfilled. I'd love to hear your responses back to this. Again, my name is Brandon Dempsey. I own Go Brand Go. You can find us at gobrandgo.com. You can also find me at brandondempsey.com. I'd love to hear any comments, feedback, criticisms, anything like that. I just love your feedback. So again, brandondempsey.com, gobrandgo.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.